So this is a, I guess 3600 watt generator that I bought for $30 off of Kijiji. The guy that I bought it from said that it had no compression in the engine, so I figured 30 bucks, whatever, buy it. See how it goes, take it apart, see what's wrong with it, if there is anything wrong, and maybe fix it, and if not, throw it away. The guy I bought it from did tell me that he just put a fresh tank of gas in it, so that's probably worth like $10 just on itself. Anyways, here we go. So I tried pulling it a couple times, and it does seem awfully easy to pull, no compression. I think it looks like the valves may have some clearance issues, so I'll try running a feeler gauge and seeing what they are, find out what the lashing is supposed to be on them. Okay, so I've done a compression test on it, lashed the valves, no compression. Checked for spark when I pulled out the spark plug, and we've got spark, so I'm going to start pulling it all apart. So I'm going to pull off the gas tank here, and there's just one line here connected to the second one in the back there. So take the gas tank off and get into the engine. So here's the generator with the motor, or the gas tank off. It looks like to get at the cylinder head, we're looking at here, we'll have to take the muffler off, and then this here is the throttle, and we'll want to take this mounting off here as well, and yeah, go from there. So yep, that's where we're at right now. There, the muffler's off. Just a few mounts. Mount here, and then the two on the exhaust manifold. So muffler's off. The linkage for the throttle idle there, that's removed. I'm just going to set it over to the side here. Hopefully don't need to move the Jenny around too much. So I'm going to pull the the carburetor and air filter off of the motor. So I'll be removing linkages here, this little tiny spring that goes right in there. This hose pops out from there, and then this hose here to the air filter will be coming off. And then I believe it's just two screws and then a mount over here down at the bottom here, back in there. The carburetor removal, along with this kind of mounting for the or spacer, I guess, for the carburetor. This is also a hole for the spark, or a retainer for the spark plug. Or no, maybe this is for the fuel line, maybe, and I think this is for the spark plug right here. So anyways, carburetor coming off. So I just opened the air filter to take off the carburetor, and found that there's no filter in it. There was no sponge or any sort of medium in there to catch it. So this may be part of the problem. I'm looking at, it looks like sand that's inside of it. So yeah, this is probably what caused the malfunction of the motor. This looks like sand, so this may be an exercise in futility. So now I'm going to remove the cylinder head, which will consist of removing the valve cover, loosening off the rocker arms, and pulling out some push rods. So when I get to that, I'll do that. So I removed I loosened off the rocker arms retainers, and then removed there's push rods that go in here. So I've pulled those out and set them aside. Those are the push rods that were in here. So they're no longer in. Alright, to take the cylinder head off, looks like we've got 4 bolts, these 2, and then the 2 inside the actual valve, not valve manifold, valve cover, I guess, valve arrangement. Anyways, so let's we'll pop those off, see what we get. So while the cylinder head's off, I just wanted to do a quick inspection, I guess, of the cylinder wall, and it's feels really smooth. I don't really see maybe a touch. I don't even think that's a score. So, anyways, it feels smooth. So I'm gonna assume for now that if the piston rings are good, so won't bother checking them. I'm pretty sure it's that valve. But in order to get all that, take the cylinder out, the piston out, I'm gonna have to take the generator portion off, the alternator portion, and remove it. Which I'm guessing, rather than do it from that side rather than the pull start side. So, anyways, yeah, we'll work on getting those valves. So here's my the cylinder head taken out. I'm going to lap the valves, all the valves. Maybe, hopefully that will help. I'm kind of wondering if somebody's already been in this. Like, it looks pretty clean. Like, it looks like it's already been cleaned out. So this may all be for nothing. May get it all together and something else is not allowing, or has the compression problem. So we'll see. So I'm gonna pull the alternator off. There's looks like there's 4 bolts, 1, 2, 1 down under here, and then there's a cover right here that has a bolt holding it on, and I think the 3rd one is over here to get at the last retaining, so I'm going to pull it off too. So it looks like I'm going to have to take these long bolts off that hold the rotor and the stator, I guess, in the alternator. I tried to break off this point here, but it wouldn't go, so I'm not sure if something else is holding it. But anyways, we'll pull the rotor and stator and see what happens. Removing the starter housing, hopefully to get access to the piston here. So I think I figured out what the problem is with this compression. I believe there's something wrong with the timing on the camshaft. So if you watch, I'm going to go through a cycle here, 4 cycles I guess, and you can watch the valves. So this one is the exhaust valve, this is the inlet valve. So if you watch, so right now we are okay, so this would be the inlet stroke. So we just did an inlet, so now we're going to be going for compression. But if you watch the exhaust valve during compression, so we should be coming up now for compression, but you see that move? It shouldn't move. It should be set. There shouldn't be any movement on that, like we want it to seal. So that's why I'm losing the compression here. So now we keep going. There, now we go into the exhaust. And then now we're back to inlet. And then boop, I just lost my compression again. So I don't know what's going on with this crank, the lobe on it. Maybe there's an extra bump or something. So I guess we're gonna end up having to pull it apart and see what's going on. So I'm gonna take off this electrical component panel. I hope it would just make it a little easier to deal with. Since I figured that timing issue out, or think I've identified it, I'm going to pull this off to maybe make it a little easier to take everything else off. So yeah, just looks like 4 screws. Maybe there's some plugs in the back. We'll see. So I'm going to de-wire the unwire the alternator. So it looks like we've got the red, blue, and yellow, and what else? This plug is to undo it. So we'll do that and see where we end up. So this is a bracket that goes on the mount. I just videoing it so I don't forget it. Probably able to put in afterwards as well. So here it is. Just removing the rotor on the alternator of this generator. I've already done it. It's kind of hard to do with one hand holding the camera, but anyways, what happens is this is a long bolt that holds the radiator, or sorry, the rotor onto a pressed shaft. There's a tapered shaft underneath of it. This hole is threaded. In this particular case, it's an M1 bolt. What you do is you fill the hole with oil right up to the very top, so it's flush. Put some Teflon tape on the bolt, thread your bolt in, and push it down, and then the compressive action of the oil is not compressible, so you're increasing pressure, and you get a big pop, and the rotor pops off of the shaft. You can see the oil that I have in there from previously. So that's how you remove the shaft. So after taking off the rotor, I am going to pull the casing, take a look and see what's inside. Maybe probably going to end up pulling the piston as well. But anyways, there's an oil seal here, which I'm probably going to have to replace. And then, so it's just removing these various bolts and then see where we're at. So I've removed the cover. Here's the gearing. So looks like the timing, if this is correct, I'll have to pull the head off and see what we got. But it looks like these markings here that I think are the timing indication, and it appears to be good. So I'm going to pull out the cylinder, or pull out the piston, and see what we've got there. I removed the camshaft, and it shows it has the this is the decompression mechanism, and have pulled out the lifters that sit on it. So the inlet is the back one, the exhaust is the closest one. So yeah, E and I. So this is the guts I figured I'd look at, describe it. So there's the two lifters go in that hole. This is a slinger for lubrication. The oil sump is right here. So this guy right here in the back, I believe that's a oil switch. So if there's probably a level switch in there, so if the oil gets below a certain point, it's wired to the ignition, and it cuts off and doesn't let the ignition go. We've got this thing here is the governor, which is this guy. So there's some sort of, probably like a little clutch or something in here, so that as the engine slows down, the clutch engages and it would pull this up or down. So like it goes up and down the mechanism. So I assume it's a clutch. It sort of pushes it out or in. So kind of interesting. Yeah, that's about all I see in there. There's nothing in there. Obviously the connecting rod and this piston head right up in there. So yeah, slinger, piston rod, or piston connecting arm. So I'm going to be pulling this apart and checking tolerances. So I pulled out the cylinder here, undid it from the crankshaft, marked it so that the exhaust section is this side, the inlet section is that side. It's facing upwards. If the putting the block on the bench the way this is, so here's where the push rods come through. Yeah, anyways, that's all I got to this point. Check the tolerances, see what's going on. Just doing some cylinder honing. So when I took out the piston, the compression rings in here were tightly bound into the head, or the piston head. The oil ring was good. This one. So I actually ordered a new head and rings. It's $16 US, along with some gaskets and the seal that goes around here on the oil seal. The oil seal for this. So yep, a couple of things. Waiting for them to show up in the mail. So here are the replacement parts that I'm going to be using. This is the oil seal on the shaft, the crankshaft that I pulled out, and it's kind of broke apart when I did that. This is the new cylinder head, the new compression rings, and the new oil ring were already installed on this when I received it. Here's the new seal. There's the retaining rings for the wrist pin that came along with it. So I'll be removing the retaining rings for the wrist pin in here. Looks like you have to do it with a pick or something to pull it out. We'll see. I've never done that before, so just kind of a little indentation here that lets you pull it out. Yeah, that's about it. So new piston head, new rings, new wrist pin, and a new seal. I also bought gaskets for everything, so there'll be a new head gasket, exhaust, manifold gasket, intake gasket, the works. I'll have to go look at them. It's there. I didn't bring them out. Anyways, that's where we're at. So pull the head off, piston head, and we'll see what we get. So here's the new piston head installed. I installed it so that this little triangle here aligned with the splasher, the oil splasher right here, which is how the original one was installed. These rings weren't too difficult to take out. These are the originals that went with this piston head. That's the original wrist pin. I used a little bit of oil in there, make it easy to go in, which it was. So I think we're all good. So starting to reassemble now. So I was looking a little bit closer at this piston head, the old one, and there's some sort of strange wear patterns on the side. Maybe it's not strange, I don't know. It's just you see how it goes to shiny to war to shiny to war, I was looking at the inside of the cylinder, and it actually looks pretty good. I don't see any odd wear patterns like this. Maybe this isn't odd. Anyways, maybe this was a contributing factor. I think it may have overheated, and then the cylinder got really hot, and that's what caused these rings to stick. So yeah, we'll see what the new head does for us. So I just put the new piston in. I had to kind of compress the rings by hand and fit them in using the picks. I don't have a ring compressor, or if I do, I can't find it. Probably wouldn't be small enough for this anyways. So got the piston in. This was orientated downwards in the original one, so I'm going to keep it the same. I don't know if there's some balance issue or whatever. So yeah, piston's in. So I reconnected the connecting rod, the piston connecting rod. You can see it in here. The oil slinger is down, so it'll be, I can't remember which way it turns. So anyways, it'll be slinging the oil from the oil sump, I guess is what we would best describe it. So now I need to put on the camshaft and get the timing sorted out. So there's a mark here on the camshaft, and then there's a mark right here on the on this I guess the drive shaft. So those two have to meet. Essentially you have to have that over here, and that way the timing of your valves match the compression and power stroke of your piston. So here are the valve lifters. They have to, I marked which ones were which just to I don't know, be consistent. I don't think it really matters, but we'll have to put those in. So there's the two holes for them, and they end up riding on the camshaft once they get the camshaft in and aligned. So here's the camshaft reinstalled. There's the timing marks are right there, so CL and then this mark, so they're attached. It ends up being that that's top dead center for the cylinder. We're fully extended. So yep, top dead center is where the timing marks align. So here's the oil seal that I got. Goes on here. Looks like I'm gonna have to press it on by hand. I'll see if I can find something that would fit over this the shaft and press it on, but I don't believe I have it, so I'll probably just sort of push it in by hand and then poke at it with a stick or something. So yep, oil seal going on now. So I just tapped the oil seal in. I used like kind of a big chunk of doweling initially to slowly tap it around to get it in, and then I noticed that the seal was slightly recessed when I took it apart, saw from the video. So then I just used this little chunk of wood to just tap it in lightly, and it's all in now. So yep. So here's the alternator back assembled. So I put on the rotor, which is underneath, and then the stator, the casing essentially goes over top of that. The rotor, to tighten this is the center nut for the rotor. It I just slightly put the cylinder head back on and fed a little rope down the down into the spark plug hole, and then just when you turn it, the piston comes up and hits the end of the rope. So I fed quite a bit of this in here, and then that keeps the piston from continuing on. So that allows you to tighten the retaining bolt for the stator, or correction, for the rotor, and then the stator goes on, and the four bolts for that. So I've got the generator running. I went and tested the alternator on it. The generator head, and wasn't getting any voltage off of it. So my guess is that the residual magnetism has ended. So you'll see lots of videos of how to do this, but essentially, you take a corded electrical tool, you plug it in to the generator. You have the tool in forward direction, and then you twist the tool in the reverse direction, which will send a little voltage into the I guess it would be the stator, which sort of tries to gives a little bit of magnetism to the windings, which then can start a current, which then amplifies, and you get this cascading effect where I'm pretty sure it's the stator. I'd have to look it up again. I don't remember. Anyways, that's where the magnetism is, where you get your EMF force and the resulting generation of current. Conductor passing through an EMF field creates current in that conductor. So anyways, I'm going to try out this thing, and I'll let you know how it worked. So I tried flashing the generator, and it wouldn't take the charge to flash the. Essentially, it wouldn't work. So I pulled it apart. This is the exciter block, which is fed from the voltage regulator right here. So I pulled. You should have when it's installed and connected. You're on the commutator, I think it is. Honestly, I'd have to look all this up. I haven't. My trade's an electrician, so I actually learned this stuff in school, but I don't do a ton of it outside of work or in work. Anyways, so I pulled the exciter off, which is supposed to run on the commutator, which you might be able to see right here. There's this guy here spins, and there's two rails. So anyways, I pulled it off, the exciter off, and I saw that my brushes here, they're broken. Like, they don't stick out. They weren't touching the commutator. So no touching, no connectivity, and no excitation. So anyways, I gotta get some new brushes here, some graphite carbon brushes. They're usually pretty cheap. I'll have to do a little research where to get them, but I think you can buy them just in like a hardware store, like Canadian Tire or something like that. I'll have to do a little research. Can't remember the last time I bought some. I bought some for an alternator once. Anyways, that's where we're at. So yeah, still more to do on this little project. Broken brushes. So just for my information, the exciter block goes in here, so that the brushes ride on that the commutator, such as that. The red wire goes to the left terminal, the white wire to the red. So red left, white right. And yeah, there you go. Great cinematography. So I finished off the generator here. It's up and running, as you can see by the earlier operation. So this is a MITM Choremaster 3600 series. It uses a Harbor Freight Predator engine, 312 cc's, which I found by obviously doing the teardown on it. So things I replaced on it: got a new cylinder head, new rings, and then the brushes that I showed that I broke. Got a new set of brushes. Total cost of repair was maybe, I don't know, $65 or so, including shipping. The cylinder head was about 16 bucks. The rings were about another, actually that came with the cylinder head, the rings came with it. And then there's a gasket pack kit that I got with it, about another $10. I think that's about all I got for that. And then those brushes, they were Honda brushes, but they fit perfect, and those were 12, and I actually got 2 sets of those, so I have an extra set. Yeah, so up and running. Starts on two poles every time. Takes 2 poles to get it going, and yeah, pleased with this little project.